I'm Lester Holt.
All right, season 2 of ILH. Here we are, ready to kick it off with a new season. Can't believe it. And I've completely forgotten how we start all this stuff. So let me think about it.
Kurt, it's so nice to see you.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
I haven't seen you since the Lesties.
That's right. And what a show. The awards we were handing out left and right. What a party. It's a shame it ended so violently when we were all attacked by the chameleon John Smith. But as you can see, we survived. We're here to talk about Dateline Another Day. That's the sequel series to The Last Day. Just kidding. Okay. Howdy, Holtheads. Kurt Money here, alongside my co-host.
It's me, Katelyn. It's season 2, Katelyn.
Season 2, Katelyn. All right, so this baby's fresh, so the IMDb does not have a description. Now, what does have a description is the cock, and it's so bad. So let's just read it and point our fingers at it and stuff.
I would expect nothing less from the cock.
Okay, here we go. A woman vanishes one summer night. When she's found dead, investigators work to uncover her killer. Nice. Really narrows it down. That tells you exactly what this episode and no other episode is about, right?
To be fair, though,
yeah,
this is exactly what it's about.
Yeah, you got a good point there. Hosted by AC. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was great to see my girl.
Starting the season off right.
Yup.
Here's Andrea Canning with The Butterfly.
Tell me, Katelyn, what did you think of this season 33 premiere?
You know, I felt like it could have been a shorty.
God, I mean, Kate, that's exactly what I was thinking. Okay? I was thinking, we just buried those f***ers, and they lead with something that I think was weak AF a little. I don't know. This was shorty material to me.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice for a season opener.
Yeah.
I felt like it was missing a few twists. The typical Dateline twists were not really there. They tried to make some twists that just weren't happening.
Yeah, and there are some interesting things that come up that are potentially twisty, but yeah, a few of them are so like obviously not, and then later they discount them themselves, and it's like, well, if you knew this was a dud, why'd you spend a whole act talking about this thing you thought was blood?
Exactly.
But
yep.
I was told that there were traces of blood.
I suppose we'll get into that. But, all right, so this tale begins in Cincinnati, Ohio. No joke. I was driving through Cincinnati listening to this episode for the first time as I heard that. Isn't that crazy?
It's Fairview, Ohio, I think.
Yeah.
Suburb of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Great accents.
Yeah, especially the detective with the short hair. She had an accent on her. Is that a Cincinnati accent?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that is?
A lot of festival workers that are transient in town.
I didn't know there was one. I have a good friend who's from Cincinnati, and he doesn't have an accent, but I was loving it.
Yeah. This was weird for me because I've been moving and stuff over the weekend, as the Holtheads know. I could not watch this first. I listened to it when it was appeared as a Dateline podcast episode. So this was the first Dateline I've never seen that I listened to first. I hated it. I really did not. I can party with a true crime podcast where you do the Googling of names later. It's like the big payoff when you're done with the thing of like who's who. But with Dateline, part of it is knowing that they're going to get the pics and the footage and this stuff. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I cut the slack for other shows because I know they don't have the deep pockets or the wide reaches of a Dateline news program.
Sure.
But I don't know. I like knowing, especially also for our show's sake, I'm going like, who's this person talking? Who's this person talking?
That's true. It is very visual. I like listening to the podcasts or the audio version to kind of get my thoughts in order after watching it, but it's important to see what these characters look like and see some of the mannerisms, and a lot of the times I don't know that we'd get the lulls if we were just listening.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh my God, there was a huge laugh. We'll say when it comes, but there was one laugh that came that actually might have been funnier via audio form because the way it was delivered, I didn't see coming. But anyway, we'll get to that. Okay, it is August 14th of 2011. John Carter calls the police because his girlfriend has been missing for most of the day. Like, he saw her the night before. Her car's at her house. He's freaking out. He calls the cop. And we hear this 911 call. Tell us about this 911 call.
He starts the call off by saying, I know you're not supposed to report people missing before 24 hours, but it's been a few hours and my fiance is missing. And he sounds both panicked and sort of resigned at the same time, which to me was like a red flag right away.
Hi, my name is John Carter. I am calling. I know that you're not supposed to report a missing person before 24 hours, but my fiance is missing.
But he manages to get the police to come over right after that call and make a report, which I thought was interesting because it had not been 24 hours.
Yeah, so why were they allowed to? I didn't like that he led the 911 call with that.
With a fact?
I suppose we're all... Yeah, or like, I know that, like, him saying, like, I know that we can't do this, but... I don't know, I just like...
That's what I mean by resigned. It was like he wanted to show that he was panicked that his girlfriend or his fiance was missing, but the fact that he led with like very level-headed facts about missing persons, it was like, I don't know, man.
Right.
Why don't you let them tell you that?
Yeah. And the 911 they did kind of chat on this 911 call. Like, she was asking him if they had fights and stuff, which comes up later, right?
Right. We didn't hear it initially, but then they play more of the call later.
You guys didn't have an argument or anything?
Not at all.
The cops get involved, and this lady we're talking about is Katelyn Markham. She is a 22-year-old student at, like, arts college.
Art Institute of
Ohio.
Cincinnati?
There you go.
Art Institute of Cincinnati.
Yeah. So she is missing. She's not at work. What do we know from the scene of their crime, I guess? Like, when the cops show up, what are they thinking?
Well, they're at a loss, Kurt, because no signs of strug.
None whatsoever.
No blood anywhere. All of her belongings were there except for her cell phone, but she had money in her wallet. Things that you'd think she would have taken with her were still there. And the lady cop, she wasn't a detective, she was the responding officer.
Yes.
She noted that Katelyn's art supplies on her desk were knocked over, and she made a note that there were some hats that would have been hanging from her four-poster bed that had been knocked onto the floor. And I'm like, how do you know they were ever on the four-poster bed? How do you know?
Is it because
That was a weird observation.
She also had a poster bed, and there were some hats that were knocked off.
It was so weird. And you look at the picture of the bedposts, and I guess 3 of the 4 have stuff on them. So, maybe it's smarter for her to be like, well, there was probably something on this 4th one. But it does seem like a leap to go, like, those hats on the floor used to be on this bedpost. I feel it.
Right. And honestly, the knocked over supplies on the desk to me did not indicate any kind of, like, it was just a piece of pottery that
It had markers in it.
Fell over.
Yeah.
And some paintbrushes were, right. It was not like a disaster zone or her artwork everywhere. The room was messy anyway. It just looked, my pens are knocked over on my desk right now.
So that was it. And so they talked to the boyfriend and get his side of the story, the guy who called 911. Now this is where my ears perk up, because in his reasoning, he says, I couldn't have done it because I was at home watching White Collar and you could check my watch history. Did you knew I was popping at that point, Katelyn?
Well, I knew it was gonna light you up because that goes on your list.
Yeah, sure does.
I laughed out loud at White Collar because to me there's nothing funnier than referencing USA Network shows.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because this was pre-streaming. So
no,
2011?
No, it's not pre-streaming.
Yep.
He's watching it on his laptop. How do you think he watched it?
He downloaded them to watch them on his laptop. He did not stream them. Streaming was not happening in 2011.
Yes, it was. What are you talking about? When did Orange is the New Black come out? What?
Look it up.
You're trying to say streaming wasn't happening in 2011?
I would guarantee it that White Collar and other USA Network shows were not available to stream anywhere. Netflix was brand new. Orange is the New Black came out like 2012.
Okay. All right. Well, look, only one guy said the word download later. Okay. Now, I had some questions about that. Did he watch it? Did he download it? So you're saying he probably got a torrent or whatever,
yes.
Downloaded it. Okay, fair. Yeah, okay.
Streaming was in its infancy, and USA shows were definitely not streaming. Only Netflix was. And I think it's so funny when people reference those shows, like White Collar.
Yeah.
And what's that other one?
Burn Notice?
Burn Notice. And then there's the one that's not White Collar, but it's the same. The Piper Perabo one.
Boy, I don't know. Wait, I'm thinking of, this is on TNT or TBS, but Rizzoli and Isles is also a punchline in the same vein, right?
Love Rizzoli and Isles.
Of course you do.
What, you don't love it?
Well, I've never seen it. I just know it as a ref because it was such a great premise and title. It's just Rizzoli and Isles.
They're fun.
Oh, okay.
I saw a few episodes. A friend of mine actually did a guest spot.
Oh,
on it,
cool.
So I watched it for her.
All right, sweet.
That was awkward, you think?
Okay, so the cops have nothing, but luckily this John Carter, this boyfriend, loves to talk. Loves to hear himself talk. He'll go down to the police station and talk to them. No problem. And guess what else he's got, Katelyn? He's got suspects for them to take a look at. Ready to go. He's super helpful. What are you thinking about these names that we're hearing about? Like, we got, first up, Ryan Ball, the creepy kid.
Yes.
Did you remember this?
Every school has a creepy kid like this.
Yeah.
And to throw him under the bus for a potential murder, it's not fair. He had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
There's a very creepy kid named Ryan Ball who likes to freak women out.
And John Carter, they love to say his full name. John Carter.
Oh, yeah.
Of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
He also tried to say that the creepy kid was messaging Katelyn on Facebook and trying to get her to go out with him, even though he knew that Katelyn and John were dating. And then the cops kind of intimate that they look into that, and there's no messages from him on Facebook.
He was saying that this Ryan Ball creepy kid was sending his girlfriend weird messages.
Made advances on Katelyn in a very awkward way. Sending her Facebook messages like, can I get your number? We should hang out. Let's get together, blah, blah, blah. He knows I'm with her.
That doesn't make him creepy, dude. That just makes him interested in your girlfriend. I don't know.
Totally.
But this is the guy who's he's in jail for being a pedo, though, so...
Yeah, no,
right?
He's creepy. He just couldn't have done this crime. He
Yeah.
had a pretty airtight alibi.
Yes, he did.
They didn't have to look very far to find him. Ball was in jail.
So they talked to him in his orange, and he's like, I don't know why people keep talking about me. And he passed a stress test.
Ball showed no deception.
Which, we feel the same as we do about polygraph tests, that they're BS, but boy... are they a big part of tonight's episode. And I think that's the only tool the detectives really had, right?
Is that similar to the Scientology stress test?
Probably. It's probably literally the exact same thing, right? It's probably the same device and everything. It's just called something different. Yeah.
The E-meter? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's just the E-meter they're holding. They're going, ooh, yeah, you're hiding something. But he passed the voice stress test, so they let him go. And then there was another person there that night named Brad, who was a friend of them both.
So I was like, I'm not talking to people like this that are gonna go to the media and misconstrue things. And
Good call.
I'll be more than happy to talk to the proper authorities.
Brad was an animated dude. I like this guy. What'd you think about Brad?
Brad, I wanted to see more of because he kind of brought the energy. And he noted that he had been at their house that night, but the vibe was off, and he could tell as soon as he got there. And that also pointed to John Carter's guilt. The fact that Brad was like, I walked in, they greeted me weird, Katelyn didn't get up off the couch. It seemed like I had walked in on something uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I bought it.
And it was just weird.
She did not move from that spot, which again was just weird.
Yeah, they talked to him. Does he also take the voice test? He might.
Brad's test results showed stress when the police asked him questions about Katelyn's disappearance. Brad insisted he was just a worrier.
So at this point, the cops have nothing else, and they've got nothing else to try. So, it's 20 months later. Nothing's happening to the case. They find her body. In the woods somewhere in Indiana. Which as soon as they said that, I was like, well, now we're screwed. Because two different jurisdictions or whatever.
But what was interesting is that it was right across the border into Indiana from Ohio. And it was just a few short miles from John Carter's dad's property, or his stepdad.
Yeah.
His dad had a farm right there.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of nowhere. And one of Katelyn's friends she was like, you would need to know that area to put her body there. That it's so random. And the fact that it's that close to his dad's farm and he knows that area, it's another red flag.
Yeah, I was thinking about this whole like, well, you have to know the area to do it. And I would be terrified to go in any area like that, even if I wasn't hiding a body. I feel like I'd just be like, people would have the right to shoot me or whatever in this woods. But this dude hit it, and actually, additional info, I don't know if this came up in the episode, but her body was wrapped in like some gardening, like stuff you put down in a bed for like when you're planting stuff.
Oh.
And I guess John Carter's mom had the same kind, but they didn't verify if it was the same. Look, nice little tasty specific detail.
So the cops find her body and they immediately identify it as her remains because of the dental records. The cop noted that even though they had found skeletal remains, Katelyn's teeth were so unique that you could tell just by looking at the skull that it was her. Which is just like, oh God, that's so heartbreaking to just know when you're looking at bones. Like, they didn't even really need to test them. They just knew. That's just like a gut punch.
They made that call on site when they Googled.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it was these people that found the body, straight up Googled missing people, and they said she had a wonky tooth or whatever, and they could see that wonky tooth on the skeleton.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
How do you feel about Dateline? The next picture we saw of Katelyn, she had a shut mouth smile. I was waiting to peep that tooth. I went back and saw the tooth was there. Is this one?
I don't know that I...
What do you think?
Have an opinion on that. You felt like because they touched on that in that moment, they should have immediately cut to...
You don't think they should have followed him? I just think that they spend the time to talk about how she was identified by this unique tooth. They've shown her with her open mouth for the previous hour or so. And the very next shot is her with a closed mouth. It kind of... Anyway... It's a bummer.
You know what I thought was interesting?
What's that?
We learn shortly thereafter that there was another murder of a girl who looked remarkably like Katelyn. And like same height and build and coloring and both artistic, same kind of style. Very eerie how similar. And at one point, I actually thought they cut to a photo of the other girl by accident when they were talking about Katelyn.
Oh, really?
I don't think they did, but they looked so much alike that I had to pause it and go back because I thought, wait, did they just screw up and mention Katelyn and then show the other girl?
Right. That second body being found was... They did look alike and stuff. All this butterfly business, Katelyn. Where's your head at on this butterfly biz? I mean, this is where I'm like rolling my eyes a little. I'm surprised they didn't want to call this the butterfly killer or something. Like the second victim also made people think of butterflies.
They were strikingly alike, and when you were talking to this young woman's loved ones, they described her as a butterfly.
I think it's a common thing. Butterflies are, I think that's probably like one of the most common tattoos that women get.
Yeah.
So it's just inevitable, I think, that multiple girls would be described that way. Especially if they, in their community, are known for being kind of like the artistic, different girls. The alternative girls. They would be described by the basics as a butterfly.
Okay, speaking of this, alternative girls, we found out from Katelyn's sister Allie that she would use the colors in the palette that people don't put on their eyes. I need to know everything you're thinking here, Katelyn, because I was thinking,
so
I need to know.
VIB Kate stepping in. I loved that AC kind of threw shade.
Yeah, that was funny.
Her sister was saying she would use all those crazy colors in the eyeshadow palettes, and the colors that other people kind of ignore, those are the ones that Katelyn would use. And AC goes, I always wondered who bought those. And she said it in a way where it was like, those colors are ugly. And then her sister was like, oh, that was her. That was Katelyn.
Usually the colors that you don't use on an eyeshadow palette, she would use those.
I always wonder who buys those.
Yeah, she did.
And I just thought it was so funny that AC is probably sticking to really safe, neutral colors because she's a journalist. But plenty of people use all the outrageous colors.
That's what felt weird to me.
They wouldn't put them in palettes if they didn't get used.
That's what I was going to ask you is, are there colors that people don't use much? Because I feel like they showed her eyes and stuff. I see people wear makeup of all sorts of colors. I can't think of one color I haven't seen on someone's eye. Mm-hmm. Right?
Totally. I personally don't wear a lot of outrageous colors because they look bad on me. But I don't know if this gives too much away, but I will party with some purple.
Ooh. All right. Well, we approve that here in the Critter Cave because that's Mrs. Columbo's color.
Is it?
So continue to do so. Sure is. She's right here, by the way. Wait, okay, before they find that body, here's what sucks. Is like this case goes cold for a lot of years. And during this time, John Carter's out there on TV saying, I'm tired of people saying it's me, it's not me. I loved her so much.
I'm not going to acknowledge the ridiculous things that people are saying because I know that I would never hurt Katelyn, ever, in a million years.
Always, anytime we cut to him, classic stuff where he's talking about him, not her, or like their relationship and how they were it was a year and all this.
We were engaged. It's a year today that we've been engaged.
Katelyn is the love of my life. I've been with her for 6 years. We've been engaged for a year. Today would be exactly a year.
She was the love of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just wanted to take her to her date at Red Lobster.
And celebrate her birthday with her and go to Red Lobster like she was planning.
Her birthday choice was Red Lobster. Were you buying that, Katelyn?
I was, because I love Red Lobster.
Of course you do. Okay.
Completely unironically, I love it. Another thing about me that you're going to learn tonight is that I love chain restaurants.
Sweet.
And Red Lobster is one of the best. I party with it. Now, they have been affected by inflation quite a bit. The prices are not what they used to be. I used to be able to get a snow crab meal for just $20, and now it's like $35. Oh. And that's a huge difference.
That's a crime.
But I do it because I love it. And I was like, you know what, Katelyn? I party with that.
Sweet. I only know...
If that's how you want to spend your birthday, more power to you. Also, their suburb could have been the kind that only has a few chains, and that was like the best one.
Yeah. That's true.
So I'm not mad at it.
I had a Red Lobster growing up that I think we ate at one time, but I don't remember seeing a whole lot of them everywhere. They're just, I only kind of know them as a punchline, as being a bad restaurant. What do you think?
Nah.
Is it? Not for you. Not for you.
I hold it in high esteem, just like I do Chili's.
Okay, wait. Where does all this rank with Panera? We know you love Panera. Where's Panera fit on this chain?
Panera's different.
Okay.
Because that's like a pop in and grab your meal to go type place.
Gotcha.
You wouldn't do that at Chili's or Red Lobster.
Okay, fair. So they find the body and they do a memorial, and we meet her dad. The dad's a talking head in this the whole time. He's a sweet guy. Feel bad for him. He hugs John Carter at the memorial, which we see. And that's where John said we would have kids by now. We'd be married. We'd be having all this again. All about him. Right?
Gross.
We would have had our kids. We would have had our marriage.
So Amber is this friend of both John and Katelyn. And now everyone was kind of anti-John because he was looking super guilty. But Amber was sticking by him because nobody else was, and she wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. She goes to the site where they found Katelyn's remains to pay her respects. What does Amber find when she gets there? She finds more of Katelyn's body.
Right.
She goes back, there's more remains.
They made a horrible discovery. They found more of Katelyn's bones in the ground.
We both thought her whole entire, body had been found. Were you losing it? A little bit.
They had already buried her.
Yeah.
And they assumed they had found more than just her skull. But evidently... No.
How little did they look around where they found those bones originally? Because if Amber's going to the site where they were found, do you know what I mean? It's like, it sounds like she went right to where they found the other bones.
And
I can't believe it.
That's some shoddy police work on the part of Indiana.
And she goes, I loved it when she said this like a Lifetime movie. And I'm like, boy, I don't know if Lifetime would show them picking up some bones and stuff. But if they did, I'd watch it. Oh, I like me a Lifetime movie.
Do you?
The dad asks the Fairfield police, hey, can you give it to someone else because this cop here is sucking? Dateline doesn't say her name, but I looked it up. Rebecca Irvin. It's either Irwin or Irvin. She was the lead detective that they were mad at and stuff because she was like, I don't think John Carter did it. Mm-hmm. The cops tell the dad, Dave, no, we can't do it. So, this is where we're introduced to a wealthy benefactor who steps in.
This was so weird.
What to do about this, huh?
And why not tell us who it was?
Yeah, I have so many more questions about why they're allowed to just be called a wealthy benefactor. Like, I don't understand. Like, why can't we know who they are? Why can't we know more about this? Was it just like a fan online or something? Like, who was it?
Are there a lot of random rich people in Cincinnati?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Then one day, a stranger called.
Someone got involved in the case that you didn't know, a wealthy benefactor that took an interest and hired a private investigator.
I don't know. Look, I guess it's cool because they hired some more detectives that didn't really find us a ton of stuff, but he had a cowboy hat on.
He did.
What'd you think of J. Ryan Green?
He had a cowboy hat. It was weird because it's Ohio. And also
Yes, good point. Excellent point.
he wasn't from Texas. Wasn't he from Florida originally?
Maybe.
Former Florida detective turned private investigator, J. Ryan Green. To him, it all felt personal.
I saw her dad talk on TV.
So where did the hat come from? I mean, look, he's branding himself. It's a whole vibe.
Yep.
You remember him. Maybe that was the point.
Yeah.
But it sure felt out of place.
Yeah. And this is the guy who finds them. This is where we're misled for an act or two on Brad.
Yes.
Because he's the one where he's the wealthy benefactor. They interview Brad again, and he fails the voice test, and they say he's nervous, and he's like, I have anxiety and stuff. And they find out that Brad was driving a car the night that it happened, and where's that car? Well, he sold it. So then this cowboy guy tracks down the car, and the wealthy benefactor pays to buy it.
He said he was in a hurry to get rid of it, and I said, great, I want to buy it.
He worked with police to conduct forensic testing.
And what do they find in there?
They think that they found specks of blood. And I just want to note, Car Kate wants to make note that this is an old Acura Integra. But this car ends up being nothing. It's not her blood.
No, and they say in this moment, I don't know if they directly say that it's, they say they found what they believe to be blood.
I was told that there were traces of blood they got out of the trunk of Brad's car.
Wow.
I was extremely excited.
But they really led us to believe, and they found blood in there. Will it be Katelyn's? But later, 20 minutes later, we find, oh, we don't even know if it was blood. Great. Let's talk about Brad more.
In fact, they couldn't even tell if it was blood at all.
This is the part where it was like, okay, this is a Thursday shorty. This is not a Friday fatty. Because this whole 20-minute thing could have just been lifted out, and I bet they'll do that when they recut it for shorter slots. They'll just lift that whole segment.
You're probably right. We should keep our eyes peeled for that just to see how right we are. I mean, I already know we know that's gonna happen, but I want to see it go down. Okay, so this is where J. Ryan Green steps away, cowboy detective. However, I love that he's no longer on the case. But did you hear what he's doing instead? He's not working on the case anymore. He's just hosting a podcast about it. Did you remember that? Oh,
God.
And they play a little clip, and it's like called Gone at 21.
He was no longer working the case, but had turned his investigation into a podcast.
Welcome to Gone at 21.
But I don't know how I feel about that, where the PI's like, okay, thanks for the money. I'm not going to work on it anymore. But meanwhile, do you mind sitting down with me? I'm going to do a little podcast about this now. Like, it feels crazy.
And keep making money.
Yeah.
If he made money.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows, man?
He's not making ILH money, I'll tell you that.
That's right. You're damn right. Okay, so now is when the second body is found. There is a woman around her age, looks like her, same kind of stuff, and killed the same way. Like, they find her body with a plastic bag over her head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they find that body, but they have somebody in mind for that, right? Like, tell us about what goes down with this second body.
Okay, well, this is what I'm a little fuzzy on. There's this creepy guy who they link to this second victim, and he is somehow kind of running in similar circles to Katelyn and John Carter. And then they find a photo of this guy standing next to John at a party.
Yeah.
So immediately they're like, okay, well, they're linked.
At that point, I too am going like, what's going on here? Because I think his name was Michael Strauss. The guy gets convicted, but when they're trying to tie it to Katelyn is when they holy cow, these guys hung out or at the same party or whatever. And we see the picture and there they are. That was kind of crazy.
Right next to each other.
Yeah.
To think like two murderers hanging out at a party.
Yeah.
And
Strauss said he had nothing to do with Katelyn's death. And despite that photo with John, he didn't really know him.
Michael and John both say, like, I don't really know that other guy. Like, they're not buds. They met at a party once and ended up next to each other in that photo. And then they both happen to be murderers.
Yeah. Wait, I just remembered. This is when I had my biggest and best laugh, was when they were able to clear this Michael Strauss guy, because he's the guy that had crazy hair, right? He had like insane dreads and facial hair that was wild, right? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we had two people in this with crazy hair, but this is the guy that had dreads. Okay?
There was another guy who was very disheveled, yeah.
You're right. But this guy, he's cleared because the new PI, there's like 3 or 4 hands this gets into. This is now with an investigator named Newton. He gets the case in 2020. He finds a picture on Facebook of a guy at a party wearing a lampshade. And behind that guy in the lampshade is our guy, Straussy. Now, hearing AC describe a picture from a party as a guy in a lampshade is so, like, cliche and hilarious to me. I don't know. I was dying.
Newton found this photo on Facebook of a guy wearing a lampshade on his head at the party. And right behind him, there's Strauss.
It was funny, but then you see it and you're like, yeah, I've been to those parties.
Yeah.
And then those photos end up on a big Facebook photo dump. We've all seen that.
Absolutely. I wonder if the guy in the lampshade saw him on Dateline or something. What do you think?
If he even remembers doing it.
Yeah, that's another good point. Somebody goes, hey, that's you. And he goes, dude, I have no idea. That was a wild night, dude.
Totally.
That was a wild night for me.
So Newton, was he the one who said to Katelyn's dad that he's kind of starting over from scratch? And her dad's like, yeah, I want you to just start over blank slate because nothing's been happening on this for 9 years.
I believe that is. I don't know if Newton's the guy in the interview grilling Katelyn's dad. Did you have a problem with it? Because I did. Is that what you're talking about right now?
I guess that was the interview where he's like, nobody's been able to cross your name off the list. No one's been able to officially count you out as a suspect. And he's kind of like, well, I guess so. I didn't really realize I was being considered, but I would like to be crossed off the list.
Yeah. And the way that they word it is like, we get the sense that, correct us if we're wrong, that nobody's asked you this question. Nobody's asked you if you did it yet. And the guy's like, it kind of sounds like you're accusing me. And the detective goes, hey, I don't care how you take my question.
It's weird.
Because the whole vibe is weird.
It's
right?
weird.
I'm like, okay, well, I guess they're going hard now.
And her dad, he's been through enough, right? His daughter dies. They bury her. Then he learns they didn't actually bury very much of her. And now he's being accused of it himself when he has his suspicions that it's John Carter. I mean, leave him alone.
I mean, are you asking that like you think I did it, or?
Well, you can take my question for however you want, seriously.
Yeah. I like his reasoning for why he was suspicious of John Carter, because when John Carter called the day that she goes missing, he was acting...
Yes. I loved this.
Yeah.
He was adamant that she was missing without calling me first to see if I knew where she was. She could be sitting at my kitchen table talking to me, but he was like, no, she's missing. And he's like, you didn't even ask me. You didn't ask her sister.
Yeah.
Like, he had to call and ask the sister.
Yeah. That's a good... That is such a great point that old John Carter didn't think of. John Carter takes his third polygraph or voice test or whatever the hell it was. He took his third one in 2021. And of course... Now, he showed deception. Now, if we didn't know that this guy did it, I'd be mad at the cop, but the cop says the classic, long time since I've seen anybody fail it this bad, right?
Classic move.
He fails it miserably.
It's been a long time since I had somebody do this poorly on a polygraph.
Oh, we haven't talked much about AC, and there were 2 times when I was laughing. One is when they were talking about if there was a second person involved, and she said, in cahoots.
People were saying that you two could be in cahoots?
The way she said in cahoots was adorable.
Oh, okay? I didn't hear that.
Okay.
That's cute.
It was very cute. And this one I'm not sure is cute. It's kind of throwing shade at pizza delivery guys. But she goes, she's driven and he's driving pizzas around.
Right.
She's driven, he's driving pizzas around.
Yes.
I do remember that. I mean, that's unfair. Katelyn's in college and he was driving pizzas around, but he was doing something else too, wasn't he?
Oh, he was blowing glass.
He was learning a trade. He's an artist just like she was. So I kind of thought that was shady, because then we learn later that John Carter, he's teaching glass blowing. Like he's doing it.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. And we know Brad, that friend that was over that night, they had gotten high, watched a movie, and talked about glass blowing.
He said they'd smoked some pot, watched a movie, and chatted about the glass blowing class John was taking.
I wanted another movie, and after all this white collar biz, I thought we were going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But we did not.
No.
I was really, really, really hoping that John Carter didn't do it so that I could jump to his defense for how many times he talked. I wanted this to be an example of why you don't talk to the police. But this guy kept talking, and guess what?
He did that.
He did it.
And he never had a lawyer present.
No, you're right. He did not. It was always just him. He always cooperated. Now, when is it when we find out? Because a lot of people are like, we're 13 years after, 12 years or whatever after this happened, where we're finally going to arrest some people. Now, what is it that made cops and people believe that it was actually John Carter? Because 2 new witnesses come up. Actually, 3. Like, talk about, they really luck out with these people that remember stuff, because these 2 teens, they were present in 2011. They told the cops, hey, we were hanging out that night and saw what kind of car. This was another car bit. Remember this? Red Ford Focus.
Oh, yeah. It was a red Ford Focus.
And there was a blue car driven by a guy with crazy hair. That's John Pemberton or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Palmerton. Palmerton.
He did have some crazy hair. He was a Hagrid-looking motherfucker. Not Haggard.
He was
Hagrid.
You're a wizard, Harry. So what do these teens see? They saw John Carter come home in his red Ford Focus with the lights off, go into the garage for like 5 to 20 minutes, and then they both left again.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
They knew this at the time, but the cop thought that they sounded suspicious, so they didn't give it any credence or whatever.
She found their stories to be, quote, suspect.
She was convinced that he was not involved. She was wrong.
So they just ignored it. And then when they make the arrest of John Carter, another witness comes forward and says, hey, they asked me about the wrong night. Like, they interviewed me about that night. And if they'd asked me when they said Friday, whatever. But Saturday night, if they'd asked me about that night, I heard people fighting and a thud.
Now, she told them that the night Katelyn disappeared, she heard an altercation through the wall.
That's so crazy that this many years later, she's like, oh, you know what? It never occurred to her to maybe reach out like the day after she gave her statement to be like, wait, which night?
Yeah.
That's
That's
nuts. Like, call them back.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what decided to bring her out now. Like, maybe she'd forgotten about it and she saw the case and was like, wait, I was asked about that. It wasn't a Friday. It was a Saturday.
How would you remember from like 13 years earlier?
I know.
This, to me, would like not hold up in court.
It was a shouted like, stop it! Stop it! Right. I definitely heard that.
They first arrest the disheveled guy, and we see footage of both, and he's like working a fry basket. And he's like still doing the basket of fry stuff while they're arresting him. And I was like, look at this guy. He's at it. He's working hard.
He's committed.
So we should have a trial. And although they do talk about how this case has no evidence and is weird, how there's no signs of struggle or like there's no evidence. And we know why they're planting that seed now is because what goes down at the trial, Katelyn? What happens at this trial? There isn't one because motherfucker gets a deal of a lifetime yet again.
He pleads out, and his sentence is not long.
No, they're about to go to trial, and the prosecutors are sweating it because it's circumstantial. Like, they don't have anything that ties them directly, blah, blah, blah. And then the defense attorney comes over and says, hey, we're ready to do a deal. We'll say that we're guilty of involuntary manslaughter to the 3rd degree.
The case, prosecutor Mike Moser decided to go forward with it.
We'll do it.
Like, just like that.
It was almost that quick.
Which, what it means is, the most you can go to prison for that is 3 years.
Terrible.
And this prosecutor, who I kind of liked his dude until it was about this, was like, we took it. We snapped it up right away. Because why? You guys freaking love deals? Like, what's the justification here? They didn't...
It's because they knew it would be a hard case to win with no evidence. But he also knew what the sentencing would be for that plea. And I don't know that he...
Yeah, and he says, don't shoot the messenger.
Right. I don't know that he explained it to Katelyn's family. Like, listen, this is a maximum sentence of 3 years. So it was a shock when they learned that.
Yeah, and I don't think this was a scenario where they asked the family's permission. Is that?
No, I don't think so. But I don't think they told them either because they were outraged.
Yeah, because he didn't even have to tell them how he did it or what he did with the body. Again, he just had to say was responsible for her death. Great. What does that get us? And 3 years, they spent 13 years following this guy around, going, this is the guy that did it. We know he did it. And now they got him. He's going to do 3 years. Like, what the hell?
And he'll probably get out before that.
Yep.
And then he'll just go back to glass blowing, I guess, and
yeah,
he'll go on with his life.
AC was having a fun time talking to Newt about the glass blowing class that he interrupted. Because there were some old grannies or something he said that were there that they got to show that night.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine being in that glass blowing class?
Well, there was a bunch of elderly old women in there.
And that sounds like something relaxing.
It wasn't that day. They got a show.
This is the guy that also said I can't stop, and I just get you want to say like won't stop or something. Remember this guy, this detective?
Can't stop, won't stop.
I don't stop. I just don't do that.
All right, so this prosecutor's on Dateline talking and stuff. He's way too cocky for what a bullshit plea deal this was, because he goes, and I've got a message for John Palmerton, the guy that like helped get rid of the body. He goes, you may think you're off the hook because we dropped the charges against you, but we've got our eye on you.
If he's watching Dateline when this thing is aired, I want him to know that I am still looking at him.
If I was John Palmerton, I'd be cracking up going, what the hell's that mean, dude? What does that mean? What are you going to get me for? This guy got murdered.
Tax evasion?
Yeah, like he's definitely not going to get arrested for this murder, right?
No, I mean, there's no, again.
Yeah.
No evidence. There was no evidence for John Carter. There's even less for him.
Yeah. Now, when they do the little wrap up at the end of the episode and they're talking about butterflies and whatnot, they showed a picture of Katelyn and her dad posing as Charlie's Angels. And I don't know why Katelyn, but this came to my head. Have you ever been asked to pose as Charlie's Angels for a photo, and have you done it? Because you've been around for these movies. I feel like you would have been in some group sometimes where they'd go, let's do Charlie's Angels. Does Katelyn say no, or did you play along?
Huh. That's a good question. I don't think a photo exists of me posing.
Yeah.
But I can't say that I was never asked. And maybe I posed in person, but not for a photo. It was definitely a thing. We've all done it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I have. I'm doing it right now just so I can catch up. It is a real thing, though. We do see a lot of Charlie's Angels poses. I feel like I want to keep my eye open for other Datelines for it to show up. I have pictures of my cousins doing it at weddings and stuff. 1,000%.
Sure. I've never been in a wedding. That's definitely something bridesmaids do. And I've never been a bridesmaid.
Never. Bridesmaids doing Charlie's, that's a great example. Because that's probably like one of the things that the photographer asked them to do when they're doing the photos. Okay, now do one as Charlie's Angels. Okay, now do one, right?
Totally.
All right, well, that sounds like it's time to go to them lists.
Kate's unnamed list. It was not a small town. It's Cincinnati. Well, outside of Cincinnati. I'm not counting it. It's they had a Red Lobster.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the only Florida connection is the cowboy Private Eye. I believe they said he was in Florida before coming to Ohio. There's no military connection. Nobody said I'm sorry, but we did have 2 cars.
Okay, now I think back to that 911 call.
Okay. He
Carter
said I'm sorry at the very end of his call, but he did not cry and stop himself.
He choked up?
And it was not in an interview scenario.
Okay.
He was just like, I'm sorry.
But the lady said it's okay too. But look, we can't, because we didn't see him. I'm just guessing as well. So I guess we can't count it. But I was thinking of you during that 911 call. It was close.
It was close.
And there's a lot of questionable people there, and it's just kind of, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I like when they're talking to one of our hosts and they start crying and they have to stop and say I'm sorry. But 2 cars, that's pretty good. We had the Ford Focus and the Acura Integra. Both super boring.
That's right.
And pointless.
Yeah, and so where did that green car go after the wealthy benefactor paid for it? Because he paid for it, so does that guy get it?
An impound lot? I don't know.
Or did old John J. Green with the cowboy hat walk away with it? Maybe he's cruising around in it right now.
I had a crush on a guy in college who had that same car.
Did he wear a cowboy hat or no?
No, he was a surfer.
We were both kind of getting along and talking and sharing.
All right, well, now it's on to Kurt's Kick-Ass List.
Kick-Ass List.
My list came in strong tonight. And it started right off the top with signs of struggling. AC said it, and she led into it where I was like, okay, she said that thing. Okay, now's about the time when she does, and she did!
Nor were there any obvious signs of a struggle.
She totally said it. Signs of struggle. I loved it. And then this white collar stuff, that's Booms.
Watched some episodes of the show White Collar on his computer.
Those are definite list items of, I like to hear those kind of deets. Now, Also, we got to count Lifetime movie because it's a movie mentioned a little bit. The fact that they found more bones at the burial site. I mean, that's just...
I almost felt like I was in a Lifetime movie or something. There is no way this is happening.
But I mean, that's it. Those are two.
And the movie that they were watching that night that we'll never know what it was.
That's true.
But a movie nonetheless.
That is true. That is true. Future Kid here. Already having to pop in. For one, Caitlin's correct. I mean, Orange is the New Black wasn't streaming until 2013, so peeps weren't streaming in 2011. Fine. Also, dude mentions Dateline on the show.
If he's watching Dateline when this thing is aired.
So that's on your list, Kurt Money. You dum-dum. And then, also, these two forgot to discuss that the white-collar defense was busted entirely because they found out that he was Googling plot synopsis the next morning of the episodes he quote-unquote watched. So, that's clearly BS. All right, back to the show. Good to be back.
I think we both did pretty good.
Yeah, you're right. Good way to kick off the year. Now, I mean, that wasn't the strongest Dateline episode to kick off a new season, but that felt like a pretty damn strong ILH episode. Am I right or am I right? Well, that's going to do it. I'm Kurt Money.
I'm Katelyn.
I'm Lester Holt. For all of us, I'm Lester Holt. Good night.
Welcome to Gone at 21.